Hi, this is Evan Jones at lawschooly.com. We're looking at Preptest 62, Game 2. This is the stained glass game. You might have heard of this. It's a pretty notoriously tough game. And one thing about this is obviously it's on a very modern prep test. This is why if you're following along, you should definitely not be doing this prep test until pretty late in your prep. So for people taking in June, now is a fine time to be getting to this. But if you're studying for October or September, definitely put this away and do it again when you've developed more skills. These modern tests, you can find really tough games on older tests, but I think when you aggregate it all together, the difficulty is marginally greater in game sections of modern tests. And so we really want to only be doing them when you've got the skills already in the bag and you're feeling pretty much like ready to go for game day. So yeah, let's jump in and take a look at the setup. Okay, turning to the setup, we've got an artisan who's hired to make 3 windows. So I've set that up with this sort of drop-down setup like we use in the LSAT trainer. And we're going to be putting these different types of glass into these windows to make them up. And we've got our glass up here. We got green glass, orange, red, purple, and yellow. And one thing to note is you can use these more than once, but you can't say like have 2 G's in one in window 1. That would be, or 2 R's in window 1. You got to use only one of each color per window. And the game wasn't exactly clear on that, which I feel was a little bit of a design error on their part, but it kind of becomes clear when you look at the acceptability question. Looking at the specific rules, we see that he's going to use exactly 5 colors of glass, and each color of glass will be used at least once. So the notation I like to write for that is AL1 of each. Just a reminder that we can't not use yellow somewhere in here. We can't not use red somewhere in here. There has to be at least one instance of each of these kinds of glass. And then each window will contain at least 2 different kinds of glass. So the best notation to use when you're doing that is to fill in with a square block, which tells us that that has to be occupied. Absolutely. Every time something has to go in there. So let's do that for the 3. And then now looking at the more specific rules, the first rule we have is that exactly one of the windows contains both green glass and purple. So we have like a G and a P here. And this is a bit tricky because exactly one window, what does that mean? Well, we cannot have any other windows that have G and P. So this is, G and P, you definitely have one, and it's the only one you have. So if you want to notate that somehow, just do it in a way that you can remember. 1 max is what I might do there. GP 1 max. Okay, and then we've got exactly 2 windows contain rose glass. So rose, and then I put them here so I remember that obviously they're in different windows, and then there could be more. Rose, or more. Okay, and then this is a bit idiosyncratic, but it's just like whatever I think is going to help me remember it. No need to get like too specific, like saying there's a right way to do this. Just do it however you remember that there's going to be 2, at least 2 roses, AL 2 or more. Okay, and then we've got yellow has some rules about it here. If a window contains yellow glass, then that window contains neither green nor orange glass. So we got 2 conditional rules here. No yellow, then no green, and then yellow, then no orange. And also visually for me, I like to draw that this way too, so I see how it'll stack up. Yellow and no orange, yellow and no green. That's an extra reminder for me of what this conditional statement means, that whenever I've got yellow, I can't have green. Whenever I've got green, I can't have yellow. And then our final rule here is that if a window does not contain purple glass, then that window contains orange glass. So another conditional rule, not purple, then orange. It's always helpful in situations like these, I feel like, to write the contrapositive as well. And then that gives us not orange, then purple. Definitely happens. And you should notice at this point, I always say to link up rules wherever possible. This not orange, then purple rule that we had, not orange, then purple, that can go right on here, tacked on. So now you know whenever that you have yellow, you're going to see purple as well. So bear that in mind. And then also, you want to keep the original contrapositive out here somewhere so you can see it visually. Not purple, then orange. And, you know, another thing you can say is, well, not purple, then not orange. Not purple, then orange, right? Well, then that also means you can't have yellow, which is just another rule that you can string together that might help you out down the road. So I like to put that in there as well, and that's due to this rule. Okay, so now where does that leave us? This isn't exactly the end of the road for me, because at this point, I see that these windows are really arbitrary, right? So like 1 and 2 can switch. It doesn't really matter. You know, we've got no additional information about like what we weren't told, for example, that window 2 definitely contains P. To me, that indicates that they're going to move around very freely, these variables within there. But what we do know is we do know something about the combinations within it. So we always, for example, have a GP. So you can just pick one of these to have a GP already. Let's just pick 2 and then put our G and our P here. And then that's not the end of the road either, because when we have G and P, right, G can't be with yellow. So since we do need to have at least one of each of these, we do need a yellow somewhere. So when I was doing this, I just put my yellow off here, and then following this chain, I saw that we also need a purple there. So already, you know we need our 2 red somewhere. We don't really know where those go, but we've got a whole lot done as far as filling these required blocks in, at least. So I didn't see anything more here, so I was ready to go on to doing the questions. Okay, question 7 is the acceptability question, so we're not going to mess with that, but this one is a lot of work for an acceptability question, but still just do your same strategy as always with taking each rule one at a time and seeing where it gets violated. When it's violated, cross that off, and there will be 1 remaining. And here, that's B. Okay, question 8 just asks us to find something that cannot be a complete color combination of glass. When you have a question like this at the beginning of a game, it's generally always testing you on stuff that you already have figured out if you've done the setup correctly. So you want to just scan the answer choices for one that violates something that we've already figured out. Don't like do scenarios out for every question until you've at least tried to kind of quickly find something that violates a rule from our setup, and you can see that right away. So let's look at them. A, green and orange together, you know, I'm like, why not? You know, it doesn't violate any of these rules, so I'm moving on. A's gone. B, green and purple, also not violating anything. I mean, we can easily imagine that we'd have a green and a purple combination um, hanging out by itself because we've already got it in 2. So let's move on, keep looking for more promising answers. C, green and rose. Okay, so let's look at that. We've got no purple in there, which means we would need orange. And then all of a sudden, that's something that can't work because this is supposed to be just green and orange. Just green and orange? No, just green and orange is no good because that would pull in O as well. So C is your correct answer. C cannot be true. So mark it and move on. Moving on to question 9, we're asked if 2 of the windows are made with exactly 2 color combinations, no more, then which of the following could be a complete color combination of glass in one of those windows? So we're given these little combinations in the answer choices, and we have to say, could that be one of the windows in and of itself? So in thinking about this, I start with my G, my P, and my YP, like always. And one thing I note is that we're left with kind of few possibilities for how we split up these R's. We can't split up the 2 R's that we need this way, because then we don't satisfy the condition that 2 windows have exactly 2 colors. So what do? We know we have to have an R in here, and then I guess the remaining R is going to be in either one of these spots. So at that point I ran out of kind of ideas for what more I could do, so I'm just going to try these combinations here. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, rose, then yellow. That's A. Could that work in this setup? No, that can never work because, if there's no P, there's an orange. And then all of a sudden we violated the rule about having exactly 2 colors in 2 of these windows. So A's out. Okay, A's gone. Sorry, and this is very tricky stuff. This is probably one of the harder questions in this very, very hard game. So, okay, with A gone, now we get back to this original setup that we had. Okay, and then we have orange and rose. And that's this window right here. That's the only place you could have an orange and rose window. And this looks really good to me. Okay, so we've satisfied that rule. We don't have P, so now we have orange, right? And then we could just add the red right over here. And yeah, I think we're good. So yeah, that leaves B as the correct answer. And luckily for us, it was in B. We didn't have to do all this extra work to check these other answers, but once you had this, it was not too hard to solve. Okay, so that's 9 out of the way. So question 10 gives us a complete window to work with here. So it says we've got a window that's purple, rose, and orange. And that's a complete window. So then we already know we've got our GP and our YP. So I'm feeling like this should be fairly easy to solve from here. So it asks us what the complete combination of one of the other windows could be. We know we need to use the red somewhere, right? So I'm just putting it here for now. And let's see. Actually, we should probably leave it flexible. Go into either of those spaces. And then let's take a look at that. With this, you're going to the answer choices and seeing what you can do. Do we see green, orange, and rose? Is that possible? GRO? No, GRO could never be possible for a complete window in this setup. B, GOP? GOP? Yeah, sure, actually. And that's a little tough to see here, but you move this to... you move this R over here, and then you can have a GOP here. And yeah, you're not violating any rules. Let's see, we've got over here, we've got our YP and our R. Here we've got our G is not violating any of these rules because there's no yellow in there. And yeah, we know the pro's okay because that's what they gave to us to start with. Okay, so B is the correct answer. Not too hard, but still time consuming. And scary because we're like checking the answers, which always feels like it's like the last thing you want to do when you're kind of going through them, but armed with at least a good starter diagram like that, it's fast work. Okay, on to 11. Okay, moving on to question 11. If orange glass is used in more of the windows than green glass, then the question asks us to find a complete color combination of glass that we could use in one of the other windows. So we know we have at least two orange to have more than the one green that we already are required to use. So start with GP just like always, and then your YP. And don't forget your two R's. And what does this do exactly? Well, we can never have O over here, right? That's a no-no because of the YO rule. So our two O's have to be split up into here and here. And at this point, I couldn't see anything further that I could do with diagramming here. So I was left just going to the answer choices to work with this diagram and see if the combinations they give us are okay. So let's try the first one. We've got orange and purple, O and P. That's fine with our rules so far, no problem there. So just this combination alone is good. All that's left to do is stick our R's in. And I didn't see any reason why we couldn't just have our two remaining R's right here. And with that, we're left with B as the correct answer because it doesn't violate any rules. So A. So we got lucky there, and answer choice A was the correct answer. So score 1 for 11. All right, and then 12, thankfully, is kind of a rest because it's basically just testing whether you did 11 right. And this is going to look artificial because I'm not doing this in real time. But since you'll always have your work preserved from earlier questions, you get on and see question 12, and it's asking which of the following could be used in all three windows, which color? And luckily from question 11, the work that we did over here, we can see that purple is okay in all three, and thankfully that's an option. So then you have the correct answer, C, purple glass. That's one reason why you never do what I'm doing here and erase. You always want to preserve your work. Unfortunately, we have kind of more limited space in the presentation model here, so we're stuck erasing things, but don't ever do that. Okay, so question 12, answer choice C is the correct answer. 13, the last question. If none of the windows contain both rose and orange glass, so we have a new rule sort of for this question. Orange and red is out. Then it asks us what a complete color combination of glass in one of the windows could be. So that's kind of a pattern where that seems to be how they're testing you in this game. So let's see what we can figure out from this new rule. We do our GP again, and our YP again. And I know we've got two reds, right? Two reds. And we need to use an orange somewhere. Of course, it can't be here. Okay, so you know that an orange is going in one of these two spots, orange and orange, which means, and this is a very difficult inference, and this is why this is a question that I expect most people would actually get wrong. The vast majority of people will have a very difficult time with this. But we see our two oranges, our orange has to be in one of these two spots, and our reds cannot be in with that orange, so that forces at least one red over to here. That's tricky to see, but if you want to do out the combination, say you've got an O here, then you're going to have red and red here. If you have O here, you'll have to have red and red here. And whatever the one common thing, there's always a red here. So hopefully you see at this point that that this is a likely, this inference hopefully solves the question. So it's asking us what a complete color combination the glass in one of the windows must be, I look down and I see YPR as a choice in E. But the only thing is we can't quite select it just yet, right? Because what if you could put something extra here? Well, let's try that. Well, we know we can't have green there, right, because of the green and yellow rule. And then obviously we can't have orange there. So yeah, YPR is the most we could have there, and we know it has to be that way. So yeah, E is the correct answer in 13, which leaves us done with a very, very difficult game. So if you had trouble with this game, I wouldn't freak out. It's likely to be difficult for most test takers, especially this question 13, very tricky inference to see. So just remember, if you can't visualize it the way that I did, with seeing the O bouncing around between these two spots, O and O, you might want to just write out all of the possibilities here, because there's only three, all the possibilities for the O's and the R's here. Okay, so let's see what game 3 and 4 have in store for us. Thanks.